President Cyril Ramaphosa announcing through a statement there that the elections will be held this year on the 29th of May. And this, of course, as the date has now been announced for the 2024 General National and Provincial elections as well. Now, the President also saying, has also in line, and I'm reading from the statement, with Section 17.2 of the Electoral Act 73 of 1998, consulted with the IEC on the election date. Furthermore, the President convening a meeting with all non-provincial premiers and the IEC to discuss the state of readiness for the general elections. The 2024 elections coincide with South Africa's celebration of 30 years of freedom and democracy. Therefore, President Ramaphosa calling on all eligible voters to fully participate in this important and historic milestone for the democratic calendar. The President quoted as saying in the statement, beyond the fulfillment of our constitutional obligations, these upcoming elections are also a celebration of our democratic journey and a determination of the future that we all desire. I call on all South Africans to exercise their democratic right to vote, for those who will be campaigning to do so peacefully within the fully observance of the law. We also urge unregistered voters to use the online registration platform to register. And that is the presidency statement there. The proclamation to declare the date will be issued in due course. And that is breaking news at this hour. Let's get reaction now. Cyril Ramaphosa, Chief Electoral Officer, is on the line with us. Thank you so much for your time. We've always been in conversation. The one thing that has been clear is that all of us have been waiting for a date. We finally have it. How do you react?
Well, we are quite happy with the fact that we now have a date, and it brings certainty. But it also means that as the IC, we now need to intensify and escalate preparations for the date of the 29th of May.
And would you say that then, as the IEC, as you are now preparing for this work, you have sufficient time?
We're quite happy with the amount of time it gives us. We'll be able to do all the processes and all the procedures together with political parties and independent candidates, where we will be comfortable with the time period towards the 29th of May.
The President also calling, of course, for all the eligible voters to utilize this opportunity, either to register on the online portal, but also those who would have registered to still, adhere to that and go and actually vote. And I suppose then the broader work in that front also continues for yourselves there to ensure that all eligible voters take part in this election.
Yes, indeed. We really support that call by the President. Firstly, that those that are not registered, you still have an opportunity to register either at the local office of the IEC or online. But for are registered, ensure that they are correctly registered, that they do in fact come out on the 29th to cast their vote.
And Tate Mambola, before I let you go, of course, we saw, the Rivonia Circle as well as Build One South Africa taking their fight to the Constitutional Court. And you are cited as the IEC as a respondent in that matter. And I wonder, what are your initial reactions to that?
No, look, we are abiding the decision of court. Want to raise is that matter must be disposed of expeditiously. It becomes even more urgent now that the election date is.
Mr. Mamabolo, that line is failing us there. That's Cyril Ramaphosa, Chief Electoral Officer, as we were getting his reaction there to this court submission. But let's move on then to the EFF, because we are struggling with that line, and I do understand Senawo Tambo is standing by. Thank you so much for your time. How do you react the 29th of May, declared as the day that South Africa goes to the polls?
We welcome the long overdue announcement of the elections from Cyril Ramaphosa. It's been something that should have been announced a long time ago, and now people can prepare themselves to democratically remove Cyril Ramaphosa from office on the 29th of May 2024, which must be declared as Freedom Day, because that's when we're going to free ourselves from load shedding, unemployment, rising crime, and the incompetence of the ANC government. So as the EFF, we're extremely happy that we can now properly prepare for the day in which we're going to remove the ANC government.
And would you say it gives you sufficient time to then be able to get all the work off the ground so you are able to, ready yourselves for this particular election?
The EFF has been ready. We've been one of the leading voices who've been calling for the announcement of the election day on a continuous basis. So our structures have been established with more than 500,000 volunteers across South Africa on a VD level who are going to protect the votes of our people, who are going to ensure that the democratic outcome and will of South Africans is practiced post the 29th of May and ready ourselves for a transition to a government of economic freedom. So we have been ready in terms of the establishment of our structures, in terms of the rolling out of our campaign, and from the 2nd of March, we will be having our provincial manifesto at Gauteng and having our provincial manifestos for the whole month of March. So our elections machinery has been on standby waiting for Cyril Ramaphosa, who has been delaying the announcement of elections because he was trying to start out the mood of the mood will change. When darkness has been stand, when poverty has been stand, 11.4 million people are unemployed has been stand. So we are ready and we are calling on all people to prepare themselves as that day is not an election, it's not a holiday. It's an election day and it's a day for us to liberate ourselves from the misery we've lived in the past 6 years.
All right, Senau Tambo, the EFF spokesperson. Let's move on to the Freedom Front Plus's Dr. Peter Groenewald. Good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. Your reaction to the election date?
Good evening. Well, firstly, the Freedom Front Plus welcomes the announcement of the date. That ensures that political parties now have certainty and can plan their campaigns accordingly. But also, it brings a certainty to the voters of South Africa, which is very important because we must remember, in this election, you will only be able to vote from the voting station where you registered. Now that they know the date is the 29th of May, they can determine where they will be on that day. Many people are going to other provinces and start to work there. They can still register. That is very important. We must remember that the registration only ends on proclamation date, which we do not know at this moment. So it brings a certainty as far as that is concerned. And therefore, we urge the people of South Africa that make sure that you are registered where you're going to be so that you can vote on that day.
As political parties, I wonder then, because, the issue of voter apathy has been a reality in South Africa as well. How concerned are you about this as the FF Plus?
I think there is a bit of a shift when it comes to the apathy. More people are interested and they realize that this is a very important election taking place. And I think the moment you've got the date, there will be more enthusiasm amongst the people. And we also know that everything as far as the election manifestos and the election material and campaigns of all political parties and institutions will now build up to the election date, and that will contribute and enhance more enthusiasm when it comes to the election on 29th of May.
Dr. Peter Groenewald there, who's with the Freedom Front Plus. Thank you so much for your time. Let's move on now. The Democratic Alliance's John Steenhuisen joins us on the line. Thank you so much for your time. Let's start then with your reaction to the announcement of the election date.
Well, we are very grateful the election date has finally been announced. We challenged the President on Saturday to release it so that we can get this election on the road. I think it's going to be a historic election. I think that the DA is meticulously prepared for this election. I'm very comfortable with where we're at in the polling and the hard work that's been done, particularly on registration. Our manifesto is launched and it's been favourably received. And we are absolutely committed to bringing to an end the 30 years of ANC failure, corruption and state capture. And I think the upcoming election is now an opportunity for the most important people in a democracy, and that is the voters, to choose a path of progress, transparency and accountability. So we say bring it on. We're looking forward to meeting this campaign head on and setting out an alternative vision of hope, prosperity and opportunity for more South Africans.
Mr. Steenhuisen, and before I let you go, in another matter, of course, that judgment, set to be delivered tomorrow in that constitutional challenge, are you confident that things will go your way?
Well, I mean, as confident as we can be. I think we've set out a very good case for why cadre deployment and the practice has violated the sections of the Constitution that deal with the public service. Obviously, we're hoping for a favourable judgment, because if we can get cadre deployment outlawed, we can start to build a effective civil service that's not loyal to parties and individuals, but is loyal to serving the people of South Africa. That's not possible under the current cadre deployment system. And we've seen the huge damage it's done at places like Eskom, Transnet, Portnet, Denel, SAA. It has literally gutted many of these institutions, as well as other government departments. So the sooner we can bring this terrible practice to an end, no matter who is in government, I think the better it will be for South Africa.
Mr. John Steenhuisen, there, the leader of the Democratic Alliance. Thank you very much for your time. We move on now to the Inkatha Freedom Party. Mkhuleko Hlengwa is standing by. Mr. Hlengwa, thank you so much for your time. Your reaction to the announcement of the election date? All right, we are trying to re-establish a connection there with Mkhuleko Hlengwa. A reminder there, the elections will now be on the 29th of May. The presidency, through a statement announcing that date and saying that the president has consulted with the Independent Electoral Commission. You heard them as well earlier on, and they were talking about how for them this now brings certainty, especially on the work that now needs to continue when it comes to preparing for that all-important election date. And of course, the president also convening a meeting with all non-provincial premiers and to discuss the state of readiness. The president also calling on the eligible voters then to register. Those who have not done so through the portal, make sure that you do then make use of that portal in order for you to be able then to participate in this election. Listening to political parties that we have spoken to this evening, they talk about how they now welcome the fact that South Africa knows when exactly it is going to depose, and this is as South Africa is marking 30 years into our democracy. So there's quite a lot of talk that is, a lot of reaction to this particular news, especially when you think about the fact that there has been a lot of calls for certainty and a lot of people thinking and wondering whether the president was going to make the announcement at the State of the Nation address, but then we heard that the president would then make this announcement later. Now the announcement is on. The election date is the 29th of May, the provincial and the national elections. Let's now speak to Bantu Holomisa, who's UDM leader. Thank you so much, Mr. Holomisa, for your time. Your reaction?
We welcome the announcement, and it's not far from what the IEC and parties have been planning around the May. So we welcome this, and I think it will create a little bit of certainty and also for planning purposes that this date is announced today.
And I suppose then it also brings certainty for your planning as a political party as you're preparing to campaign and get ready for the elections as well.
Yes, that's true. For instance, on the 2nd of March, we are at Galaga Estate launching our manifesto. So after that, our troops will be all over the country, gallivanting, looking for votes.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, UDM leader there, Bantu Holomisa. Let's go back to the IFP spokesperson, Mkhuleko Hlengwa, who we understand is now joining us. Mkhuleko, I do hope, Mr. Hlengwa, it's a better line because we're trying to speak to you a little earlier on. What is the IFP's reaction to the announcement of the election date?
Thank you very much, Sibonga. Good evening to you and the viewers. Yes, it's all systems go for the IFP for the 29th of May. We are election ready. We consider this to be a freedom day of sorts for South Africans, for the country to be able to find itself on a new path, on a new trajectory, to take it out of the clutches of poverty, unemployment, corruption, and unemployment, and to make sure that we get a clean start, a fresh start for the country. A lot is going wrong, and we believe that these elections are beyond important, and we believe that the gaffe over the weekend by the Deputy President suggesting the 24th of May was testing the waters for voter suppression by having an election on a Friday, and we're quite glad that we've been able to push back on the frontiers of that kind of thinking on the part of the ANC. Obviously, moving forward, there has to be serious changes to how election dates are announced and managed, for it to be the sole prerogative of the president without any transparency and without any serious consultation with those who are the stakeholders of the electoral process, gives a monopoly and a competitive advantage to those in office, in this case obviously being the ANC. But as far as the IFP is concerned, it is all systems go, and our election committee will be streamlining all our plans now to make sure that come the 29th of May, everything goes according to plan. But we are headed to the 10th of March 2024 at the Moses Mabhida Stadium for that all-important manifesto launch of the IFP, which will be detailing a comprehensive roadmap for South Africa's future.
All right, Kulego Hlengwa, the spokesperson of the Inkatha Freedom Party. We move on now to the African Transformation Movement. Zaman Jona is joining us on the line. What is your reaction?
Thank you so much. Well, as the African Transformation Movement, we thought this day would never come. But remember that the African Transformation Movement was the very first political party to launch its manifesto, which was already last year, because we've been ready since. When we launched our campaigns, we launched them in May last year. So we've been ready. We are happy that finally the date has been declared. We can finally put to rest 30 years of nothingness, 30 years of the abuse the people of this country have been subjected to under the rulership of the ANC. So as the African Transformation Movement, it is all systems go, and we are ready for the polls.
All right, Zaman Jona there, who is with the African Transformation Movement. And as we're trying to get you more reaction then to the announcement of the election date, I suppose then you think about the IEC that is going to also be making sure that all the work is done. Remember, even in the lead up to this, we also saw the showgrounds in Pretoria that were also in disarray. The IEC talking about the importance of making sure that everything is also fully functional there. There's also going to be a lot of focus even on the ballot, the parties that then eventually make it on to the ballot paper. There's going to be a lot of focus on who exactly is there, what exactly happens there. But I do understand that now we have Brett Herron from the Good Party, who is going to be joining us live now. And I do understand that, do we have then Brett Herron from the Good Party? All right, so it doesn't look like we do have Brett Herron then from the Good Party, but do note that we will bring you more reaction to this particular story, because these are developments that a lot of political parties, a lot of South Africans were in fact waiting for in order to get a sense of when do we have the elections as South Africa, when do we go to the polls, and a lot of focus now is also on those who are either unregistered, who still need to use the portal. The presidency, through his statement, encouraging a lot of South Africans who are still not registered to utilize the online registration portal and make sure that you register. The 29th of May is when South Africa goes to its general elections, provincially as well as nationally.